Hi, I'm Callie from CRK Training Blog. The video that I have for you this week was taken on the island of Molokai, Hawaii, and I was there last week. While I was there, I had the opportunity to work with my host's horse. This is Jelly Bean, and I did about a 30-minute, just a little session with him this morning while I was there, and we decided to film it so that I could share it with you. So Jelly Bean tends to be quite mouthy and pushy on the ground, and some of the things that I did with him I think might be helpful to show you. As I start here with Jelly Bean, I was just kind of trying to figure him out a little bit and figure out what would trigger his biting or his pushiness, and it didn't take long to find it. He is definitely not a mean horse, definitely not an aggressive horse. Sometimes I think that his biting and kind of his pushiness might come out of a playfulness, and today it seemed a little bit more like he would just get annoyed when I would ask him to do something, and he would try to bite me to make me stop. So that's the reason that I'm keeping a hold of his halter here. And you'll notice I'm not pulling or hanging on the halter all the time, but the reason I wanted to hold on to the halter is so that he couldn't actually reach around and bite me. I think for him, being able to reach around and take a good nip and then, fling his head back could kind of be reinforcement, almost in a playful sense, or just being reinforcing to him for whatever means. So that's why I kept a hold of his halter, so that I wouldn't get bit and that his biting wouldn't be able to succeed in making me essentially take the pressure away, which is just I'm pushing a little bit there with my left hand, kind of at his rib cage, to ask him to move over. So I did a few minutes there, and then I actually grabbed a little stick. It was about an 18-inch piece of bamboo, and I used that when I had the opportunity to be quick enough with it, use it just like I did there, and basically give him a tap on the nose when he would come around to try to bite me. So you'll see I use it a few times that way, and then it also helped make it a little bit easier to put a little pressure on to ask him to go forward instead of just move his hindquarters around. So again, my goal for him was to just kind of get him used to, first of all, having my hand there on his halter. For a lot of mouthy horses, that can seem to trigger it as well. As soon as you put a hand up kind of near their head, they're going to be grabbing at it. So I like him to just get used to having my hand there, and then it gives me some protection, really, so that I don't get bit. And you can't really see it in this video, but another thing I did is that when he would go to swing his head around, I would, especially if I couldn't get around quick enough with the stick, I'd put my fingers out a little bit. So essentially as he came over, he just kind of ran into the ends of my fingers. And that seemed to help a little bit, so that it was kind of made the biting a little more almost self-punishing, because he was just coming around and either running into my fingers or getting the little tap with the piece of bamboo if I was able to. And the thing with using it in that sense is that it's got to be really quick, and it's got to be almost the instant. If they bite and move their head away, then it's too late to really punish for it. It's got to be kind of instantaneous for it to really work well. So here again, I'm just kind of seeing if he'll soften a little bit. And when I say soften, it's just that when I would take a hold of his halter, instantly, like, the muscles of his neck would kind of get tense and stiff. So I was just working with that a little bit to kind of get him to relax through his head and through his neck, and then I would start asking for a little bit of the forward movement. And then in the next few minutes here, you'll see that I actually spend kind of a good bit of time just working on getting him to start stepping forward from the little tapping with the stick. And you'll see I just kind of move his head back and forth a little bit to try to unbalance him enough to help get the forward step. And I left this in here just so that you could see that it doesn't always come right away. Sometimes you have to be patient, and you have to try to just keep tapping through a lot of different stuff, including he did try to kick the one time, and I just kind of kept tapping through that as well. I think it's coming up here soon. But then eventually we did start to get more of the forward movement more consistently, and a little bit more quickly, that he would respond a little more quickly as well. Yep, So there's the kick. So I offered that, and I don't really do anything to punish that. I just keep tapping. So it's kind of just trying to send a message that that's the wrong answer, that's not going to work. But as soon as he moves forward, then I, of course, stop the tapping. But I just keep my hand there on his nose almost all the time. I would occasionally take a little break where I would just let him out on a long rope, and we would kind of walk up and down the driveway here a few times, and then we would go back to doing this type of work again. And I found that with mouthy horses like this, it seems like the key is consistency and patience. So I know there's, people have a lot of different recommendation and different ways to deal with biting and with mouthy horses. This is just one exercise that I chose to work on with Jelly because of his pushiness. So it would be a good exercise to get him moving his shoulders away and kind of have that cue when the hands come up, you move away from it instead of pushing into it. There we go. So that right there is what I was looking for, and that was really nice. So you saw there he was moving over softly. We had forward movement, but he was, giving his shoulder instead of kind of popping his shoulder out towards me. So now in this next section, we work a little bit with food. So this was another area that as soon as the food would come out, he would tend to really grab for it. And I'm using just a little strategy here where I'm holding the food. In this case, it was a piece of carrot, and I bring it up to basically the top of his nose there, and I just hold it there until one moment where he just softens and is a little bit more still, and then I bring it down and I feed it to him. And I still have a hold of his halter when I have the food up there, because it gives me better control of his nose. And then here you can see I let go so that we work just a little bit on, can he keep his head away without me holding it away. So we did that a few times, and then I decided to just play with it a little with the exercise that we were working on, using it as a positive reinforcement and seeing how he responded to that. And it's funny because you'll see his attitude actually does shift when we go to doing the exercise. And there I was just working on putting my hand on his nose a little bit, so that every time my hand came up, he didn't think that there was a treat in it. But you can really see his attitude start to shift, that he starts, instead of just being really annoyed at the fact that I'm asking him for things, it's almost as though he gets a little bit more engaged in trying to figure out what I want and more willing just to offer a little bit more movement than he was without the food. So that was kind of interesting. And I think that this little piece goes to show that even if a horse is mouthy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use food or you can't use positive reinforcement in training. You just got to be really careful of how you're using it. There, so there was some really nice movement as well. And you'll see that as soon as we stop, I'm just holding his head out, and that kind of avoids him making the mistake of bringing it back to me. So whenever I'm working with a horse like this, I try to really set myself up that if the horse does make a mistake, I'm able to correct it, and also I try to set myself up that I'm not going to get bit. Because that, in some cases, if he would be able to bite me, not only is that not very pleasant for me, but it can be reinforcing to the horse, like I said, in that it either stops what I'm doing, or that it kind of almost provides a reinforcement in the sense of they get like a enjoyment out of almost the play form of biting. So this was just another place where Jelly had some problems, whereas he would bite a little bit sometimes when he was being groomed. So that's why we are just working here with brushing him, and you'll see again that I'm just prepared in that I keep that stick up and keep the stick basically ready, so that if he were to swing around, I would be able to just give him a little bump with the stick, and again avoid him possibly being able to come around and bite me. So that's going to wrap up this video with Jelly. If you have any questions, if you have any recommendations or tips that you use yourself for a horse that is mouthy, go ahead and put them in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you there. And as always, if you're watching this anywhere besides crktrainingblog.com, go there now. That's where the best conversation and the comments happen. Thanks for watching.